Hello, Austin, Texas. My name is Adam Sparks, and I am with AISD for All. We are a grassroots effort to promote equitable education in the city of Austin, and we started a video series to bring ideas from parents and teachers and community members within AISD into the general public so that they can be discussed much more broadly. I am very excited to start our interview today. I will let you introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Cuitlahuac Guerra-Mojarro. I identify as a brown Mexican immigrant, naturalized U.S. citizen. My pronouns are he, him, his, L. I am just finished my 14th year as a classroom teacher. I currently teach in Pflugerville School District. I have a brilliant wife and 3 beautiful children. They're very young, ages 10, 5, and 2. I live in Northeast Austin since 2011. And you know, my sons currently are attending the summer virtual program at Pecan Springs Elementary.
So walk us through what the last decade has looked like for you as AISD has considered closing your elementary school 3 different times, which corresponds with when your children are in school, and also your girls' middle school as well.
Yeah, so when I moved to Austin in 2011, my wife and I found a place to stay on Pecan Springs Road. And in 2012, they were threatening to close the elementary school of the same name. And I didn't think too much of it at the time. But then my second child was born in 2015, and again, they were talking about closing Pecan Springs Elementary. And then my daughter was born in 2018, and you know, when she's in her infancy, they put Pecan Springs Elementary School on the closure block again, and threatened to close Bertha Sadler Means Young Women's Leadership Academy, the neighborhood middle school that we're zoned to. And so about 14 months ago at this point, I just got fed up. And when you learn about the history of school closures in Austin, going back to the original Anderson, looking at the way they handled schools for Mexican American and Spanish speaking youth, the desegregation program, and then the current day cycle of targeting schools that serve predominantly Black and brown populations for closure, I knew that I had to get involved to permanently disrupt this systemic racism that just comes back. And so for the benefit not only just of my kids, but of the neighborhood, I started to become very active in attending meetings. I attended the think tanks that the school district had over the summer. I thought they were performative. They gave us a blank sheet of paper and asked us to write down every pie in the sky idea that we wanted. And when I asked them hard questions about whether they were going to close the school that we were at, and we were having our think tank at Bertha Sadler Means, I pointed to enrollment data for Sadler Means and Gus Garcia, and I asked a superintendent, an associate superintendent, if our schools were next. And you know, I got a non-answer. And so then the think tank ended. And then in the fall, when they announced the school closures and they put Pecan Springs on the list and they put Sadler Means on the list, I knew that this wasn't going to end. And so I decided to become very active. I'm involved in the East Austin Coalition for Quality Education, led by Roxanne Evans and Dr. Kaziki Prince. And I met with the superintendent through that forum, and I attended a bunch of meetings, and I let them know just how fed up we were. It was disheartening and sad when they decided to go ahead with closing the 4 schools that they did in the November vote. And then when the superintendent resigned, it was kind of like a kick in the gut, because it was, well, why did you propose these changes and these grand plans if you weren't going to see them through? So now with the pandemic going on and the lack of a plan for reopening the schools, that's frustrating. With the superintendent search that's being rushed through, that's frustrating. But with the board elections coming up and 4 seats being contested, I think there's really a chance to make a difference in terms of the future of the school district and in what's most important, and that's our kids and their education.
I think one thing about the school closures program is that even the schools they didn't close, what did it do to that community that's there at the school, and what are they going to be thinking about in future years and sending their children there? What do you think the conversation around closing Pecan Springs Elementary did to the community at Pecan Springs?
I think that it confused the community, because Pecan Springs was the recipient of some facilities renovations. So they, forced parents to drop off their kids in a different spot. They closed off a part of the school. They made it difficult to just kind of exist in the space because they were investing a couple millions. I need to check, but at least $1 million, maybe $3 million on renovating the facilities at Pecan Springs. And so, and then the school has had partnerships with local organizations. For instance, the Andy Roddick Foundation is helping out with the summer school programming. And so when you have built these partnerships with community organizations, and when you went through $1 million renovation only to find out that they want to close your school down again, it becomes very frustrating. It also felt like they were targeting us. So they claim it's because of low enrollment. They claim it was because of cost for facilities. But it just felt like they were targeting a school that serves a high population of Black students. One of the closest schools to Pecan Springs is Blanton Elementary. It has 3% of its student body is Black, whereas Pecan Springs, it's over 30%. And so you really start to question, what are their intentions? What are their motivations? What are they trying to accomplish? Why are they targeting a school to close when it serves a high population of Black students, when it just received $1 million renovation, when it's got organizations and partnerships? And then you look at the property value of that school and where it's situated, and you start to really question what their true motives are. So I think it was confusing. It was disheartening, and it made us it disenfranchised the community, and it made us lose a lot of trust in the district. And that's, none of those emotions are new. It's just the Pecan Springs Springdale Neighborhood Association has been advocating for that elementary school for a long time, and it's just something that everyone is aware that they constantly have to do. And it's almost like we don't know what it's like not to be under threat of closure, and it would just be a breath of fresh air and one less thing to worry about, and give us more time and energy and capital to focus on making the school the best it can be for our kids, as opposed to constantly fighting the district to keep it open. So I think it was galvanizing, maybe in a certain extent, but for sure, I think the community's tired of having to fight this battle.
What do you wish AISD trustees considered before trying to close your school? What do you wish you could tell a trustee that they could understand about Pecan Springs and then about the fight?
So I don't know how much of it is the trustees and how much of it is the superintendent. I try to delineate between the two, but if you're asking me directly about the trustees, I want them to know that the metrics they're being proposed to by the school district are selective. I think some data is definitely cherry picked, and I think that they need to know that the school is an essential, vital part to the community. You can't have a healthy neighborhood without a healthy neighborhood school. So they need to come and see the benefits of having a school in the neighborhood. Now, people are going to come and say it's under enrolled and there's just not enough. People are going to come and say that it's under enrolled and it's underutilized campus. And so then I'd ask the trustees to ask why. Why is it that enrollment is so low? And then if they're going to come at us with charters, which is something we need to talk about, because in the Northeast, in the 2-3, I live in 78723, in that community, we're saturated with charter schools. And so I want them to know that I want the trustees to know that the charter schools aren't necessarily better. I try not to denigrate parents for their choice. I understand that parents are making a choice within a broken racist system, and everyone's trying to do their best for their kids within a system that desperately needs to change. And the trustees can't do much about school choice. They can't do much about pushing charters out, but they can do something about competing with the charter schools. And by competing with the charter schools, that means investing in the schools they have. So the investment they made on the facilities is something that we need to continue. The investment the schools made with community organizations needs to continue. And if you invest in the schools and you make the schools better, and then you market those better schools and you compete for the families to come back and enroll at their school, and you grow the district and you grow the school, then you start to win, in a sense, in that you reestablish education as a public service accessible to all students. So I want the trustees to know that this is a fight worth fighting, because we can win. And it's not even as confrontational as I make it out to be. It's about doing what's right. And what's right is providing education as a public service that are accessible to all kids, because school, in my opinion, school choice is a false choice. Parents shouldn't have to pick between one school that can offer some things and another school that can offer the other. They should already have access to a comprehensive neighborhood public school that serves their needs. And it's the school district's responsibility to do that, and it's the trustees' job to make sure that happens.
Let me switch gears here for a second, and I want to talk about segregation within AISD, because I feel like there would be many people who live in Austin who would be very surprised to just understand how our schools are often segregated by economic status and by race. And so Pecan Springs Elementary is currently at 93% economically disadvantaged students, and is at about 5% white students.
You know, when you talk about segregated populations in schools in Austin ISD, you have to talk about the city. So anyone who doesn't understand what the 1928 master plan was needs to do their homework. And real quickly, that's Interstate 35, or I think it was called Pecan Road, Pecan Street. That's why we had called it the Pecan Street Festival, because that used to be the main thoroughfare going north and south before it became Interstate 35. And that master plan, as awful of a name as it sounds, is just that, just as racist, where it forced residents that were Black and brown to live and make their homes east of the interstate, east of that main road, in order to receive essential public services like water and electricity. They weren't given a choice. So Austin as a city is segregated by design. And now, more recently, what we're seeing is gentrification. You're seeing the push out of Black and brown families from the communities they've been in for decades and for generations. Which is a problem and a different conversation. But how it affects school segregation is now you have new families moving in, and those new families are mostly wealthier and mostly whiter, and they're given choice, not just between a public neighborhood school and a charter school, but they're given choice within the district, and so. Some of those choices are the result of systems that the district has set up. When I speak about Pecan Springs, I speak about the transfer policy. And so when I drive to Pecan Springs and I'm literally a stone's throw away, I see a home that has a Yo Amo Blanton sign. It's actually a heart, right? So it's Yo Heart Blanton. So it's a family, it's a white family. I've seen them in their yard, and I'm not trying to pass judgment, but I am not going to shy away from identifying race. So I see this white family that lives a stone's throw from Pecan Springs, but is sending their child to Blanton. And again, I'm not trying to denigrate their choices, but I ask why. And I know one reason why is because the dual language programs offered at Blanton is something that parents can transfer into, and they have a choice to make in terms of transferring their child into a dual language program. However, Pecan Springs has a dual language program. So why is it that they're not staying at their neighborhood school? And I haven't talked to this family. I don't know what their reasons are, and I'm not trying to guess what their reasons are, but I am critical of a system that allows people to transfer out of their neighborhood school into the adjacent elementary program that offers the same program, and then comes around and wants to close the school that the parents are transferring out of for low enrollment. I don't care about the intentions. I know the impact is one where it's designed to target a school for low enrollment by design, right? It's designing a system that results in low enrollment so as to justify closure of that school, and that's not right. And so then what else? What are the other things that amplify the segregation that already exists in Austin as a city, and then as a result of a school? And I would say another one is, besides the transfer policy, is the attendance zones. So whether I mentioned earlier that when I moved,
okay, popcorn and apple, you have to eat both of them.
I mentioned earlier when I moved to Austin in 2011, I moved to Pecan Springs Road, and the closest elementary school was Pecan Springs. However, my oldest wasn't a school age yet. That's not my oldest you're hearing. My oldest wasn't a school age yet, but I checked to see which school I was zoned to, and I was zoned to Blanton. So even though Pecan Springs was closer, even though I lived on Pecan Springs Road, I was not zoned to go to Pecan Springs Elementary School. So you have to ask, why are the attendance boundaries drawn the way they're drawn? Why aren't they changed? Why aren't they updated? Why aren't they dynamic so as to balance enrollment? And I think the answer is clearly because of systemic racism. Whether they intend it or not, the impact is clear. You're drawing boundaries that make it harder for Pecan Springs to maintain the enrollment, to satisfy the utilization. And not to get too technical, but utilization is basically how much space is there at the school and how many of those spaces are being utilized. So when the district comes around to say that enrollment is low and utilization is low, it seems like it's by design because of the way they draw the attendance boundaries. And the last thing I'll say that leads to segregation in Austin schools is the feeder patterns. And so the feeder patterns are which elementary school goes to which middle school, goes to which high school. And those feeder patterns in Western, wealthier, wider neighborhoods are very clear and very simple and are very protected by people with privilege and power. They want their kids to stay together as they go through middle school and high school. Where on the east side, where it's poorer and blacker and browner, it's a mess. The feeder patterns are going in every which direction, and it's a convoluted, intricate web of where you could go. And in addition, people are allowed to transfer out. So the feeder pattern and the transfer policies are inextricably connected there in that regard. And so when you already have a city that's segregated its neighborhoods by design, and then you have a school district that sets up systems that exacerbates that segregation, you end up having a school like Pecan Springs that's like you said, over 90% free and reduced lunch, and only 3% white, when its neighboring schools don't have those same demographics, and they're not ever targeted for closure the way Pecan Springs has historically been time and time again.
Thank you very much for bringing this up and for addressing all of these topics, because it goes so deep. There's a lot to it. I feel like it's easy to say attendance is low, and then not realize, well, you're the ones who set the attendance policies. And if that was your main concern, we have a whole variety of options available to us. Closures doesn't have to be number one on the list. And I went to a lot of the meetings around school closures. You can see how upset the parents are and how they just don't feel like they're on the same page as what's going on at AISD. So I appreciate you speaking to that and telling your story and your experience with it and all the research that you've done in advocating for your children and for your local elementary school. Thank you so much for being with us. I hope we can do more of these as we go on. If you liked what you heard today and you want to know more, you want to be interested in educational policy in Austin, go to AISD for All, the word for spelled out F-O-R, AISDforall.org, where we'll have more videos like this and discuss how we can make Austin education great. Thank you so much.